Well, a guy that, never really had any goalie controversies around him that you covered for your career, and arguably, I will say, the best Rangers goalie in their history. I know other people will say Mike Richter, but Henrik Lundqvist. Just, it seemed like we never had any sort of issue when it came to Henrik Lundqvist's performance on a nightly basis. Just talk about your time covering the Rangers, and specifically with Hank.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned a couple guys I covered there at the very start of my career. I was very, very fortunate to cover Mike Richter. In fact, I was there. I was covering the playoff game against the Penguins, which was his NHL debut when a desperate Phil Esposito brought him up, third different goalie to start for the Rangers in that sweep loss to the Penguins. And I covered him through the Cup season and many of his years before I moved on to the Islanders. So I agree. As great as Richter was, Henrik to me was the single greatest goalie, at least in Rangers history in my lifetime. It's hard to talk about guys from the 40s, 50s, 30s, way back, way before our time. But yeah, Henrik was special, and uh, part of it was how special he was from a mental point of view. You could all see a goalie playing great physically on the ice, right? Making great saves, being in great position. In Henrik's case, you're rising up in all those game sevens, one heroic save after another. But for me, it was the mental side. And because I worked for the team I was the in-house beat reporter for their website, I was around them every day. I was around him every day for 9 years. Practice, games, travel, the plane, got to see him behind the scenes. And he's a special guy. That preparation, that intensity that he brought every single day. We used to laugh, the guys on the beat. Nothing. I never saw him angrier than the fact that Marian Gaborik owned him during practices. Like they would do shootouts and everything. Gaborik owned Henrik. And there wasn't just the typical jousting back and forth, you SOB or, ha ha ha. Like he'd be pissed. And you'd see him, you get beaten 3 times in a shootout by Gaborik at the end of practice, and Gabby's rubbing it in and everything. And you go in the room afterwards, and Henrik had to cool down. Like that's how intense he was. That's what he brought. I'm not saying Igor's not that way or Jonathan Quick's not that way. And listen, Quick's a 3-time Cup winner, as we pointed out. But it was that mental edge that Henrik brought that I think set him apart. Again, on top of the fact of what a great athletic, intelligent guy he was. It was that intensity and passion that he brought that I think really set him apart. And I'm a big believer in this, and I don't know, some people may disagree, but I think if he was the goalie of this Rangers team, man, I'd be running to the bookie to lay some money on them to win the Cup, because I'd argue he never really had a team this good. Like he never had a number one center like Mika Zibanejad, right? Stepan, Brassard, really, really good number twos, but not really elite number ones. Mika's an elite number one. Elite year after year point producer like Artemi Panarin. Yeah, he had Gaborik, but it was one great year, one year, back to a great year, up and down. They were never really high scoring team when Henrik was there. So they were always relying so much on him, 2-1, 3-2. He was so integral to every single game because they were always so tight, even under Alain Vigneault, who opened things up a little bit. And then the third component is, he never had that elite defenseman like Adam Fox had either. So these components and how deep this Ranger team is, and that's not knocking the 2012, 14, or 15 Rangers teams, which were great teams. I just think if he had this group, I think Henrik might have gotten that ring that unfortunately he retired without.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. I know I grew up, I'm going to show my age a bit, but I grew up on the 2012, 2014, 2015 runs. That's
Grew up.
yeah.
Oh
Listen,
man.
That was
You know
that
how old I feel right now, telling you that like I was there for Mike Richter's debut against the Penguins in
that
'89 playoffs.
that's what I always got to argue with my dad. It's like I can never say Richter is better than Lundqvist because I never saw Richter play. So
Yeah.
it's a tough one, but no, absolutely. I mean, I think as young as I was during those games, you know, I still believe if you gave Henrik Lundqvist a team of this caliber, he would have done something special with it, and possibly led to a Stanley Cup championship.